My name is Richard Rambarran, and I am a fourth-year economics major. I have been at the university since August, the end of August 2010, and I have been an integral member in both the resuscitation and the coordination of the activities of the University of Guyana Economic Society. I have been there since its resuscitation in 2011 September, when the initiative was taken by myself and a few other class members to go ahead and resuscitate the society. Well, not even, I won't say it's resuscitate, commence the society. The idea was there before, and the persons who had the idea from the inception handed it down to us, and we thought that it was a good initiative to run with. Students Empowerment Alliance, that's the party that I am vying for the presidential candidacy of University of Guyana Student Society. I am with the Students Empowerment Alliance after a request from Dwayne Edwards and discussion with us on the policies that we need to see implemented at UG. Dwayne and I, we share similar ideologies. We are both people who believe strongly in interpersonal interactions. We believe strongly in students' rights. We believe strongly in setting realistic goals and realistic visions. Concerning the party was formed in 2011, the Students Empowerment Alliance. It was as a result of Dwayne Edwards and a few other sociology majors having a group on campus named Students for Social Change. That group subsequently moved to get the different faculty representatives, and such the Student Empowerment Alliance was formed. The Student Empowerment Alliance, when we say alliance, we don't mean alliance with another political party. We mean alliance with the members of the University of Guyana. Those persons that at the point in time were not sociology majors, which Dwayne was the person involved. There are grave misconceptions concerning that the party in 2012 contested, and in 2012 that the Students Empowerment Alliance ran, and that Dwayne and so on, those persons were on board. There were a few persons who acted in capacities in the Students Empowerment Alliance who eventually moved over to the Student Factor Party. Those persons are no longer with us. Those persons are gone, and the Students Empowerment Alliance, we have a fresh slate of candidates who would not have been involved in student politics before, but have an ardent interest in the advancement of the university, both in terms of its academic, in terms of its academic advancement, cultural advancement, social advancement, and other interactions that we have on campus. We actually have 3 pillars that our society stands on. The campaign slogan is a platform for progress. Now, the platform that we are trying to set is the platform is UGSS, and we are trying to build this now on 3 main pillars. It's like tantamount to, let's say, we're constructing a house, and the foundation is there. UGSS is the body that is given this power. Now we have 1, 2, 3 pillars that University of Guyana, I think, and in consultation with lecturers, students around campus, and faculty representatives, and ardent supporters of the ideology that we have, they believe that the 3 issues that we should address, burning issues, are constitutional reform. The other issue on the constitutional reform we want to address is the electoral process. The electoral process is currently stuck at the manual system, where you put your finger in the ink and you vote parallel to the national elections. But what we want to do, the university has an electronic profile of each student, which they are obligated by law to keep as privacy. What we want to do is get students to start voting through that electronic profile as a long-term vision. That was the first main pillar that we're basing our entire 1 year that we are hoping to achieve on. The second pillar that we're looking at is student involvement. We want to have clubs, societies, and groups across campus, albeit sports groups, academic groups, social groups, cultural groups, whatever. The Eco-Trust group, those groups, the University of Guyana Economic Society, which I mentioned I was a member in, I am a member in, and all these other groups. We want to lend greater support for these groups. Too often I've been talking to students, and these students have been saying, you know something, Richard, we needed a broader audience for this to reach out to. We need funding, we need this, and we want this group to take off. what we want to do as the UGSS incoming body, or those vying for the position as the council of UGSS, we want to lend greater support for these groups. The third pillar that we are standing on is advocacy. The University of Guyana Student Society receives approximately $4 million. We cannot go about the place looking to pitch tarmacs and put up street lights and build things with $4 million. I'm an economics student, and I can tell you, $4 million cannot provide infrastructure. $4 million needs to be addressed in a manner that can give us the highest rate of social capital, social return. That is what we're looking to address. We want to go ahead and have discussions with GCCI, Georgetown Chamber of Commerce and Industry, and the Private Sector Commission. We want to go ahead and we want to have talks with that, so that if we can look at this, for all those viewing, this is the private sector. This is the UGSS. These are the students of University of Guyana. Above those bodies are the GCCI and the Private Sector Commission, who they bargain and they represent the interests of the private sector in Guyana. What we have on this side is the University of Guyana Student Society, who bargain for and they represent the interests of students in Guyana. What we have there is created a gap, a market gap. What we want to do is address that market gap, because we have the supply of labor, the supply of interest and everything, and they demand it. We want to have them coming together, have talks with them, and have collaborative efforts so that we can move through. In the past, we've seen, in the past, and both in the developed countries also, we have seen when large corporations come on board, the amount of success that the university can have. Why? Because up here, the private sector views it as a market. This is a market that they can tap into, and I used to work at the Private Sector Commission actually, and when I was working there, one of the foremost interests of the private sector was coming on board with the University of Guyana Student Society. The party leader at the point in time, Mr. Colin Constantine, I believe an official letter was sent to him, but the response was not as strong as it should have been. But we want to address those issues. One of the very first things that, let me just divert off the topic just a slight bit. It's related, but one of the first things that we want to do when we get in there, yes, this is our mandate, and our mandate, we have to achieve our mandate. It's necessary. We have an impulse that we must achieve this mandate in the event that we were to win this election. But one of the very first things that we want to do is conduct a campus-wide survey, so that students can relate to us, because this thing is not just 22 members of the UG populace coming together and saying, man, we can just run for this thing and forget about everybody else. One of the very first things we want to do is carry out a campus-wide survey. And this campus-wide survey, we want for students to convey to the student society exactly how is it that they believe that we can realistically augment the state of the university. We want to have that feedback from students, because the ideology that we have is going during this campaigning process, and even outside of the campaigning process in the event that we were to win, is to have interpersonal discussions with students, getting an idea of what students want, what students need. So in doing that, we might not be able to reach all 5,000 or 6,500 students in the university's registry. But what we can do is via a questionnaire or via some data collection instrument, we can meet those persons and we can assess, all right, the universe in our mandate was not included X, but X has been put forward by the populace of the university. Let us see if we can realistically achieve X and give them a feedback. We want to advocate for more security on campus. Security has been a major issue. And on campus, we want to have the security. We want to have a mobile police outpost. We're going to lobby for this strongly within the area, so that issues of crime and larceny and so on and other issues that have been affecting university students in UG and in the outlying areas, they can be amply addressed. Currently, there is no mobile police outpost in the immediate area or the immediate vicinity of UG. We want to have, as we all know, majority of the students that attend UG they come from hinterland regions or so. They usually reside in Commons Lodge or areas around that. The university is a big university. It has 5,000 students on it. 5,000 students at any one time, or 5,000 persons at any one time, they need security to be addressed, especially when coming here and being here at certain times, they become vulnerable. I don't believe necessarily in armed guards, but what I believe in is a greater police presence in and around campus. Because what we don't want to do is, we don't want to cause the university's expenditure to go up or more than it already is. I've been at this university since 2010, and I understand the dynamics of this campus and Tain campus. The dynamics of this campus is such that, yes, we are facing a deficit. I'm not too certain how much deficit, but it's in the hundreds of millions of dollars. What we don't want to do is go and have a double coincidence of supply. We don't want to have something that is already supplied there by public sector, because persons who come university, they are going to advance into the labor force, and their parents and whoever it is that is they're providing them, they pay taxes. And we don't want to have a double coincidence of that. So more police presence around campus and in campus would address that issue, and I don't believe that University of Guyana should have armed security. So security, yes, it is a main issue, and we want to address that issue as valiantly as we possibly could. If we were to go and we're going to say, all right, we're going to build a BENAB or so, $4 million can't really work. We have seen at the Spicy Dish segment there that 2 BENABs were sponsored by GTNT. Now that, when I mentioned earlier about the advocacy and looking into private sector involvement, those are some of the things that we want to start doing. Because everyone that goes on NIDAL BENAB now, they are in some way cognizant that GTNT is the provider of this BENAB. So what we want to do, we want to partner with private businesses, corporations, because as those who are cognizant of this know, there is something called corporate social responsibility. Corporate social responsibility addresses corporations in society that are responsible for certain welfare augmenting issues. And welfare augmenting issues are those things that need to be addressed on this campus, because the UGSS cannot go ahead with $4 million and just say they're going to do X and they're going to do Y and all that. Those things are empty promises, and we are not basing this campaign or our proposition for if we get into office on empty promises. We want to deliver these things, and I know that advocacy and involvement of the private sector is something that can be delivered. I am a student. I had many classes in GWLT, and I am a victim of the terrible situation that GWLT puts you in at nights when the place is hot and everything. Right outside there, because we're sitting in the stables here, right outside there, there's CBJ. We have seen that private sector can come on board, and Western Union has sponsored classrooms in CBJ. What we intend to do is lobby for a private sector corporation to come on board to help to address GWLT. Because why? Let me tell you exactly why we want to do that, and not just look at a plaster on the wound and put it up. If GWLT receives sponsorship from somewhere and a corporation and a corporation sees the interest there, they actively pursue the interest, then we have addressed the long-term problem of GWLT. Because if the UGSS uses that $4 million to fix the entire GWLT, then what bargaining power are we left with? What methods, what finances are we left with to conduct things like surveys? Those major issues. We are looking at things that can give us the highest rate of social capital returns. GWLT, what it needs is a long-term sponsor. And we intend to look far and wide for sponsors on campus. Now we have 1, 2, 3 pillars that University of Guyana, I think, and in consultation with lecturers, students around campus, and faculty representatives, and ardent supporters of the ideology that we have, they believe that the 3 issues that we should address, burning issues, are constitutional reform to address issues of transparency and accountability in the university. We know that where student factor was involved last year, there were misappropriations and malfeasances that occur. We are completely against those things, and I want my party and all of the other persons involved with this thing to come on board and let us work out methods of accountability and transparency. We can look into certain issues and so, but if society is still plugging certain perceptions concerning these things, we as students, and we as the nucleus of the society, the brain power of society, need to push for these things. One of the things that's on our mandate is looking at a non-violent and a non-discriminatory life on campus. No one that is associated with our party believes that people should be discriminated against. It was a collective decision that must be included. The issue was so important to us, we included it, that advocacy must be something there. We want to promote a non-violent and a non-discriminatory life on Turkine campus and also Tain campus. What we want to do is start bringing these organizations, these civil groups, who understand that it is the civil responsibility of citizens to address these things. We want to start bringing them on campus and making people more educated and more aware of these things. Working with LGBT groups outside of UG, working with other civil groups, such as having a larger Rotaract presence on campus, Lions Club, and these things. The civil groups, we want to emphasize on them also. Every member on campus is a stakeholder, and a stakeholder in such that UGSS is a non-for-profit organization, and members make statutory contributions of $750. In the same method that we have used the electronic profile for the dissemination of information concerning things, in that same way, concerning things with grades, issues, and so on, in that same way, we can collectively as a body bargain with the administration for the university student society to actively convey the messages or the feedback, because it's much easier and it's much more conducive for something like that to occur than yes, there will be things posted on the notice boards, because the notice boards are still a large method of dissemination of information. But we are also going to post on the notice board. In addition to this, you can have a detailed update in your electronic profile. Concerning a radio license, it has explicitly been stated that those persons that meet the requirements, those persons will be given a radio license. What we have to observe, does UG really have a demand for its own radio? Does UG have a demand for its own radio? That's something that we need to address, because you can't just go around willy-nilly supplying goods, because these goods come with an explicit cost, an opportunity cost, a social cost, everything. We can't just go around willy-nilly supplying these things, and when we're done, the demand is not there for them. So in our campus-wide survey, if students find it necessary that something like a UG radio should be established, then we can go ahead with the initiative and begin to advocate that, let UG receive some sort of subsidy. Let some of the statutory contributions that the UGSS receives go to funding whatever is not subsidized, and let us have a radio station. But it all depends on if the market, as I explained earlier, the UGSS and the general public, if the market wants that to happen. Let's move back to some basic principles here. Basic principles. You cannot actively raise the price for a good if the quality of that good does not conversely increase. Generally, about the perception of things, it's a case like this. Why should I pay more for the same quality of service that I am receiving? So, university has access to money. It has access to money to make certain changes. Those changes might not necessarily need money. They might not be infrastructural changes, but methods of efficiency, things like promptness of delivery of grades, things like student welfare, things like matters of efficiency with the administration, delivery of grades, registration on time. These things do not necessarily need money. All we need is a more efficient system to work with. So what we're saying is that you don't need capital to go ahead and augment the general aura of the student life. You can address it in some other ways. So until we see those things that do not even require capital investment to change, then I do not support raising the fee. Because let me tell you something. Like I mentioned, there's a cost to everything. There is a cost to someone standing in a line there and waiting. There's a cost to being harassed by the security guard that stands at the back there. I've been on this campus for a very long time, and I've seen just about every single issue. There's a cost to everything. There's a cost for me sitting in a class in SS4 with a dog next to me. There is a social cost attached to all of these things. What we want to do, we want to address these issues. And until these issues that, like I mentioned, do not even need capital investments, complaints cannot be made about capital investment. So until those issues are addressed, then why should we raise the tuition fee for something like that? I mean, the administration is going to argue it one way and say, we cannot provide a better quality service until we receive more money. But the students can also conversely argue, we are not going to pay for this if this is the case. Because I am not here to fight against the administration, but I want to represent truth where truth is. I want to say X, I want to say a spade is a spade. I am not somebody that comes and fancies up things, and so I'm realistic and I understand things and I want to move ahead with that. But conversely, students cannot expect students to pay in higher tuition fees for that. If it comes to a point where we must petition for what students demand, or if we must aggressively, because I was speaking to a prominent member of society recently, and they were telling me, you know, the thing about students and the thing about society in general is that we're very laid back, we're passive. We do not aggressively pursue, or relentlessly, not even aggressively, relentlessly pursue the things that we need. So if it comes to the case that students must have their voices heard by way of that, and a petition is something that we are planning to address if the food situation on campus is not addressed. But if it comes to something like that, the student society must provide that. They must provide that method of communication for students. One of the ideas that has been touted to me is more inter-campus involvement, both with TANE and also with University of West Indies. The University of West Indies Student Society in Jamaica, in Barbados, and in Trinidad have relayed interest in helping to foster a better University of Guyana. So I believe that, because we're all here to help one another, I believe that if we can draw on some of the resources there and once we approach the private sector correctly, and once we can draw on their help, yes, we can together advocate and lobby for the university's image to improve. Because look at something. You have the highest tertiary institution in this country. People from here graduate, they go to LSE and do their masters, London School of Economics. People graduate from here, they get scholarships to go to top 50, top 25 universities. And you're trying to tell me that when persons that from abroad come, they have to come into a road that it takes you 5 minutes to drive through. You understand? So those things are issues that can be socially addressed. All that needs to happen is that we as students have to come together, and we have to relentlessly, and even if it's a case of aggressively, pursue it, then we must pursue it, because the image is very important. Despite what anyone may say about Students' Empowerment Alliance and manipulating semantics for this and that, if you observe the slate that we have, this slate that we have is a completely new slate. This is a slate of persons, a team that I see, they share a collective vision. And this collective vision can be used in advancing UG. And also, like I mentioned earlier, collaboration with other persons who have similar interests. What's the name of the other party? Revolutionaries. If the revolutionaries have student interests at heart, they will come on board and work, whether we win or whether they win or whatever. We are students at the end of the day, attending University of Guyana, and we must work together, because nothing great was achieved by divide. Every single thing has been a collective effort. Singapore, a country that has a similar race problem to Guyana. Singapore, they have come together, they have realized that working together is going to help to advance the country, and now they're one of the world powers. So similarly, we believe in these things. We do not believe in fighting down and spreading slander and going and doing a whole load of nonsense. We are presenting a campaign with content. We want these things to be addressed. We see that we can realistically address them, and we want to set a platform for progress, so that if the future UGSS, the UGSS that comes in next year, they look back on what we have done, they can say, you know what, these guys they've fostered good relationships with the private sector. They have set up relationships with other campuses, with other things. The foundation is there. for them to advance. What we want to do, we want to go back to the basics and promote this thing, have a platform set so that incoming new GSS bodies can also advance. And those on campus right now can advance.